This is a continuation of A Future of Hope, Part 1. This Part 2 will make a whole lot more sense to you if you watch Part 1 first. The experience of hearing God's voice and being given this vision had given me such a love for God. I talked to whoever would listen to me. I just could not find the words to adequately express how in love I was with God, how in love I was with Jesus. And Sister Teresa was walking with me on this journey. And I think I must have thought, a few months, a few sessions, and we'll have this figured out and I can go on. I guess I was looking at it like, this is like a book. You read the book, you think about it a little bit, and then you get back to life as you knew it. But Sister Teresa was a wise and very patient guide, helping me see, hear, and experience God more fully and more deeply. So we've been doing this for a few years, and I started feeling like, hey, I think I might be called to be a deacon. But believe me, I had absolutely no inclination, no desire, no thoughts of ever being a deacon before that time. And so we talked about it, and Laurie and I talked about it, and eventually the three of us came to agree that, yeah, probably I'm being called to something, but what I was being called to be is a spiritual director. So I started on a 3-year program in formation to become a spiritual director. And I loved it. I loved the formation. I loved the way we prayed. I loved, and I was feeling really good about it. I was really feeling like, this is what God called me to when he gave me that vision. And about a month before I finished this 3-year program, I was in Mass. And I just knew God was calling me to be a deacon. And I had a knockdown, drag-out argument, full-on argument in Mass with God. I said, no. You called me to be spiritual director. I've been through 3 years of training for it. It feels so right. I know I can help people. I loved it. I did what you asked. No. Because you see, just about a week before that, Laurie and I, who was also in formation to be a spiritual director, talked about how good it felt, how right it felt to be a spiritual director and to go through all of this. And we talked also about how glad we were that I didn't go down that path to become a deacon, because we had a good sense of the demands they would put on us, on our family, on each other, and how difficult it was to go through the 6-year program versus 3 years. And we thought this was truly what God wanted us to do. And here in Mass, God is saying, yeah, but also now I want you to become a deacon. And I went back and forth with God in Mass, during Mass. Finally, I said, look, if you want me to be a deacon, then what you have to do is get Laurie to bring it up to me, because I am not, we've talked about this, and I'm not saying a word to her about it. And I didn't. So I thought, okay, that'll put an end to it, because Laurie absolutely won't want this. And that lasted for 4 days. 4 days later, we were eating lunch, and Laurie said, have you been thinking about becoming a deacon? And I said, yeah, but I wasn't going to say anything about it. She said, I wasn't either, but I couldn't stand it anymore. After Laurie and I talked, then I actually went to see Sister Teresa, and we talked it over as well. And between the three of us, we thought that was the right thing to do. I want to make really clear, I didn't want to become a deacon, but I was willing to if that's what God was asking me to do. And I remember talking to one of my spiritual direction classmates about it. And she looked at me, and because I had tears in my eyes as I was telling, she looked at me and she said, you really don't want to be a deacon, do you? You're afraid. She was so right. So I applied, pretty much hoping that I wouldn't get accepted, you know, but I was. And then 2 years into this 6-year program, you go through this intense evaluation program where they're looking to see, are you really being called to be a deacon, or you're being called to serve God in some other way? And then they send letters out to tell you which it is. So I remember waiting to get the letter, right? And I had these conflicted feelings. There was a part of me, I mean, by then I was starting to warm up to being a deacon, right? And I thought, if I don't get accepted, I'll be okay, right? In fact, I'll be a little bit relieved because I know I won't have to go through 4 more years of this. But fortunately, unfortunately, I was accepted and I moved on. And I caught glimpses of what I was truly being called to do. And I felt so unworthy to do it, so inadequate. I remember standing in a very long confessional line and silently crying because I just knew I wasn't adequate. And I knew the people at our parish deserved better than me. And I was just tearing up this whole 30 or 40 minutes waiting to get in to see Father. And when I got into the confessional, I broke down and I said, I'm not good enough. The people here deserve better. So in a real way, I sort of felt like Peter must have felt when he told Jesus, "Depart from me, for I'm a sinful man." But Jesus didn't let Peter off the hook, and he didn't leave me off the hook either. So, continued on. Now, my prayer was always, look, I want to go on, become a deacon, but if you don't want me to be a deacon, just let me know, clearly let me know, and I'll stop. I'm willing to do whatever your will is. And that was even my prayer on the morning of ordination, standing outside the cathedral, waiting to go in. Well, he didn't stop me, and I got ordained to be a deacon. To be honest, I still felt somewhat, more than somewhat clueless. I had no idea how I was supposed to be, how I was supposed to act, how I was supposed to spread this message God gave me, live this vision that he gave me. And 3 weeks later, I attended an ACTS retreat. ACTS stands for Adoration, Community, Theology, and Service. But I have to tell you, for me, on that weekend, the community part, stood out far and above everything else. It turned out to be a great counterbalance or addition to all of the theology I had been dealing with and exposed to and studying for 6 years. That experience of community was so strong, I thought, this must be what it was like when, the early Christians met in small groups in people's homes. So here I was, a deacon, with 2 deep experiences, ordination and now this experience of community in 3 weeks. It was so much more than I could have imagined when God got me to pray with Lori outside that dorm room. So much more than I could have imagined, even after hearing God tell me, I'm going to take care of that. But Sister Teresa told me on so many occasions, God is a God of more. And she was so right. So tune in next week to hear part 3, the final part, to see what God had in store for me.